Secretary Blinken, dear Tony, it's great to be back in Washington and to be together with you again. I would like to start by commending President Biden and the United States for providing such strong leadership at a time when we face the most serious security crisis in a generation. And thank you, Tony, for your personal commitment and your leadership on every issue related to NATO and the vital bond between America and Europe. Unwavering American leadership and bipartisan support have ensured that NATO allies are united like never before. And our unity makes a real difference. President Putin launched his illegal war of aggression almost a year ago. Since then, NATO allies have provided unprecedented support for Ukraine. Around $120 billion in military, humanitarian and financial assistance. As the biggest ally, the United States is playing an indispensable role in supporting Ukraine. European NATO allies and Canada have stepped up as well, contributing over half of the overall assistance, including tanks, advanced air defense systems, and other military equipment. Europeans have also welcomed almost 5 million refugees from Ukraine, applied unprecedented sanctions, and decoupled from Russian gas and Russian oil. This shows how much we can do when Europe and North America stand together. Today, we discussed the situation in Ukraine. Putin started this war of aggression, and he can end this war today by withdrawing his troops from Ukraine and coming to the negotiating table. But regrettably, we see no sign that Russia is preparing for peace. On the contrary, Moscow is preparing for new military offensives. So we must continue to provide Ukraine with the weapons it needs to retake territory and prevail as a sovereign, independent nation. If Putin wins, it will be a tragedy for Ukraine, but it will also be dangerous for all of us. It will send a clear message, not just to Putin, but also to other authoritarian regimes, that when they use force, they can achieve their goals. That will make the world more dangerous and all of us more vulnerable. Beijing is watching closely and learning lessons that may influence its future decisions. So what happens in Europe today could happen in Asia tomorrow. China is substantially building up its military forces, including nuclear weapons without any transparency. It is attempting to assert control over the South China Sea and threatening Taiwan, trying to take control over critical infrastructure, including in NATO countries, repressing its own citizens and trampling on human rights, and deepening its strategic partnership with Moscow. So NATO allies have real concerns, which we discussed today. In this more dangerous and more competitive world, we must continue to strengthen our deterrence and defense, and further increase defense spending. And that is what we are doing. In 2014, under the Obama-Biden administration, all NATO allies agreed the defense investment pledge. Since then, we have seen 8 consecutive years of increased defense spending across Europe and Canada, with an additional $350 million extra US dollar spent. More countries are now spending at least 2% of GDP on defense, and I expect that trend to continue. Today, we also discussed the importance of completing Finland and Sweden's accession to NATO. At the Madrid summit last July, all allies made a historic decision to invite both countries to join NATO. All allies have signed the accession protocols, and 28 allies have already ratified the agreement. Finland and Sweden are now being integrated into the civilian and military structures of our alliance. This has already strengthened their security, and it is inconceivable that allies would not act should Finland or Sweden come under pressure. It is important that we conclude this membership process as soon as possible. This will strengthen the security of all allies. So, Secretary Blinken, dear Tony, thank you again for your strong personal commitment and for the extraordinary leadership of the United States as we face global challenges together.